Hello, my name is Meredith Kirk, and this is my presentation about my summer 2025 internship with SailPoint Technologies. A little bit about my background. I'm set to graduate next year in May 2026. I'm going for a double major with a BS in Technical Communications and a BA in Communication Studies. And I started out as a communication major with a minor in Tech Comm. But then I realized, as I was getting more into tech comm, that technical writing was the type of job that I wanted to have, and I was already set to graduate early with a communication studies major. So I was like, why not just add in the extra year, but it's still only 4 years, and get both majors. And some of my hobbies include playing video games, writing, and editing videos. How did I get the internship? I started after my sophomore year of college. So last year, I tried to get internships and I failed. I got no responses basically. So the next year, I knew that I needed one to graduate. So I went to the Career Center and I got an appointment. And they directed me to their website where I found the TechCom resume template. And I edited that, filled in all of my information, and then I applied to a bunch of internships on Handshake. And obviously I heard back from SailPoint. And after that, I went through 3 interviews with 4 different people total. It was 1 phone call and 2 Microsoft Team calls. And then a couple weeks after that, I got another phone call and they offered me the position. So that was the happy ending there. But a little bit about SailPoint. It's a cyber identity security software company, kind of like Duo. It shot up in popularity during COVID, and it's now a largely remote international company. It was actually founded all the way back in 2005. This isn't in the presentation. You can just find it on the website. And then during COVID, it became super popular because everyone became remote, and suddenly everyone needed a way to verify identities. And now there's a total of 2.6K employees in over 60 countries. And its main office is in Austin, which is where I went over the summer for my orientation trip. I'm going to get into that later. And it has 2 technical writing teams. One works with Madcap Flare, and the other works with VS Code. This image is just how the company describes itself on the website. Just the core of enterprise security is identity. Identity security, who would think? But a general timeline of my experience. So I started technically on June 2nd. I didn't go into the office that day, but that's when I drove in. And I drove to Austin, and here they gave me my laptop and provided me all my other information that I needed. That's also where I met my manager in person, Ryan McCall. You might recognize his name from the professionalism reports. But also, during that day, during that week, that orientation week that I had, you might be curious about these pictures here on the right. It wasn't just all work. There was also a volunteer opportunity in the bottom right there, where I helped set up a summer school. So that was pretty fun. And then on our last day, there was a Family Feud event where we all had different name tags. And of course, I put who on my name tag because I'm just so funny like that. But yeah, that trip was overall a fun time. But June 9th was my first official day of work. For most of June, I worked with the Condocs team. So the Condocs team, the 2 technical writing teams that SailPoint has. One of them is called the Condocs team. They work with Madcap Flare. And the other one is called the SAS Docs team. And they work with VS Code. So I spent the first month with the Condocs team. And this section of the internship was also for teaching me general company procedures, like the processes for using Jira and writing styles. Jira, if you're unaware, is just this website that has a bunch of work tickets on it. And there will be a bunch of small editorial tickets. That's mainly what I did. During, honestly, most of my internship, it would just be a lot of editorial tickets. I wrote up some original work. I'll get to that later. But starting on June 24th, I moved over to the SAS team working in VS Code and Markdown. By them, in that sentence, I mean both VS Code and Markdown, and also the team very well, which I'll get into that later. But the Condocs team project, I would have included images of my team projects, but I can't, on my email, I can't send over the documents, because it's a security company. They're really big about, verifying information, not putting documents where they're not supposed to be. So I'm gonna have to get that approved by my manager before I do that. A big assignment that I did with the Condocs team actually didn't have a lot to do with Madcap Flare, but I wrote up process documents in Word. So basically what that was is it's like instruction manuals. So they had this big Confluence drive, which is kind of like Google Drive, it's just like a big collection of documents that describe processes for how to do things both like just in the company as a whole and within the tech writing like teams. And I was going through them and I noticed that like I would have questions and I would go to the Confluence to try to answer them first before bothering someone and it wouldn't be in there. So I brought that up with someone I was working with and she was like, "Oh, like if you found out the answers, you could fill in some gaps in the Confluence where things aren't explained." And she gave me a better idea to go into the Slack channel that had all the Condocs tech writers and just like search for phrases like "what is" or "how do I" and find that and like take the answer for that and turn that into a process document. And I took that a little bit further. Most of it would be about Flare, like Madcap Flare, but let's say someone asked like, how do I find a document using the TOC? Like I would do that and then I would I would find the answer to that question, but then I would also have like the whole section explaining like how to find documents in Flare in general or how to navigate a TOC and then just have a small section of that larger like document explain like answer the question that was initially asked, because the bigger problem was that the person didn't understand something as a whole and there was like it was like a missing link in the Confluence. So I ended up writing a total of 7 of these tutorials, and they're each around 600 words long, some less, some more, but that's an average. And when I submitted them for feedback, I got like mostly positive comments, but I had to make some stylistic changes based on the style sheet that they had. And that was a Confluence document, but oops, I didn't see it. And then for my big SaaS team project, it was transitioning this huge collection of documents called IIQ 8.5, like transitioning a ton of documents that they had been using in Flare and moving them over to VS Code and Markdown. And that is an undertaking and a half. It's a whole mountain of documents, and I was told the person who gave me that assignment told me that like I could never be expected to finish it. I'm just doing as much as I can, and I'm still moving them over. That's a really good way for me to practice Markdown, because it's just a lot of like I copy over the text and I have to turn it all into Markdown and like follow with the style sheet. But yeah, I'll be like into my last day of the internship, basically. That's what I'm gonna be doing. It's also helped me to learn a lot about how to use Markdown because like there's certain things like I know how to do a table in Flare, like, and they'll have a lot of tables in the Flare documents, but then it's like, oh, how do I make a table? And I figure out how to make a table, and it's, oh, how do I put a bulleted list in the table? And it's a lot of just like figuring out how to use Markdown more. It's helpful for that. Something else that I was doing with the SaaS team was something that we called coffee talks. So I had a different manager when I was on the SaaS team, and she suggested that I reach out to some tech writers to ask them questions about their careers and their experiences. And she called those, like, air quotes, coffee talks, I guess, because like it's a remote company, like it's a remote internship, normally where people would be meeting in like the hallways or in offices to drink coffee together. You have to reach out to them on Slack and ask like, hey, can we hop on a call for a little bit? So these all went really well. I ended up talking to 5 people total, and I've added them all on LinkedIn. They're all really good references. A lot of them have had like 10 or plus years of tech writing experience. So that was all really useful. And I also learned a lot about like the history of tech writing and how it's grown. It's really interesting. Most of them were English majors that kind of just like stumbled upon tech writing because like after they graduated, they're like, oh, I don't want to be a teacher. How do I get a job? And then they just found something that worked for them. And you might notice in the bottom right here, I have a picture of a little stuffed cat, and that was given to me by one of the people that I spoke to. Her name was Rebecca, and she crochets, and she crocheted everyone on the SaaS team little animals like this. So she messaged me on Slack and asked what my favorite color was and what my favorite animal was. and that was the sweetest thing ever, and I almost cried. But yeah, I have a crochet. One of them gave me a crocheted cat. They're all really, really nice and really, really talented. I've had a great time at this company. But key takeaways: VS Code and Markdown. Why did it say Markdowns? That's a typo. VS Code and Markdown are really good tools. I definitely prefer them to Flare. I mentioned that in one of my like status reports. That I mean, Flare is usable. I know how to use it. I've gotten a lot of experience in that too during this internship. I also already had some just from one of my classes. But I definitely VS Code and Markdown. They're just easier for me to use, and like it's less navigation. It's all like keyboard. You don't have to press buttons. Even when I would use Flare, I would switch to like you could switch from XML to something else, and I would like one of them's like typing in HTML basically, and I would switch to that a lot. But another thing I learned is that connections are really vital to growing your career. My second manager, Kathy was her name, the one that told me to set up the coffee talks, was saying, I know like it must be hard, like you were missing out on a huge like portion of the internship experience having a remote internship because you're not making connections. So like it would be a really good idea for someone your age to reach out to people and take a bunch of notes, and I did. And that was like it's been a really valuable experience. Like they've all said like add me on LinkedIn. Like if I ever move companies and you need help like getting a job at my company, you can message me, and just like a bunch of other things. It's good. It's good to have people on your side like that. And another thing I learned is that portfolio content is really important. Not only is my main manager, Ryan, like stressing that a lot, like, oh, after the internship is over, you can add this to your portfolio, add this to your portfolio. But also, Ryan told me, when we met for dinner in Austin, that one of the main reasons he hired me was because of one of the essays in my portfolio. Like the portfolio was the tipping point there. And that's like, oh my God, like I thought they'd maybe get skimmed, but it was an essay. It wasn't even a tech writing or like a technical document. It was a communication, like from a communication studies major. It's a rhetorical analysis. And he thought it was a really bold inclusion, and just like, oh. So that was really important. It was also a really good paper. I knew that. So portfolios, yep, I gotta get my hands on that content. Especially the process docs, because I wrote all of those myself. But another key takeaway is to find a balance between asking for help and trying to figure things out on your own. I feel like I've had phases during this internship where I did too much of the former and too much of the latter. Like you can just you can just bother people too much, and then it feels like you're not learning that much. You're just like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And then they basically just give you like direct steps. But then that doesn't really stick for me. I feel like I haven't really learned a lot about the tools. I've just been told what to do. And then like if I try to figure things out too much on my own, I can just get lost or do something wrong, or just like spend so much time on something that was really just really simple. So I've learned there's a balance between the two. Future goals for my career: continue work in tech writing for sure. I've really enjoyed my time at this company, and I think a big part of that is the actual work that I'm doing. And expand my knowledge of what the live production cycle is, because that's also been a huge part of this internship. Like I've learned what to do with Jira tickets, like how to contact SMEs. I didn't talk about that a lot, but I've done a lot over the course of this internship. And another goal I have is to find a job shortly after graduation. And after this internship, I have some qualities that I would like this job to have if possible. Remote. I've really liked that this job is remote, even though, like Kathy was saying, you kind of miss out on a social aspect unless you go out of your way. It's really nice to just be able to wake up and like the work is just there. I don't have to go and commute super far or get like all nice and fancy dressed. Like we just like we'll have meetings and everyone's just wearing hoodies, me included. That's really nice. But I would also like a warm social environment, because SailPoint for the most part has that. And I really appreciated that. Like, someone mailed me a plushie. Oh my God. I really appreciated that. And I also like flexible hours. Like with SailPoint, it doesn't really matter when I start, when I end, just that I'm getting my total 9 hours, 1 hour lunch break included. And like I've appreciated that, because I've had some days where like friends have asked me to meet, like, hey, can we meet for dinner at 5? Just like, oh, I'm supposed to work 9 to 6, but if I start at 7:30 this morning, then I can be off at 4:30, and then I can just go meet my friends. So that's been really nice. And another thing is that they're not strict about when I take my lunch break, just that I mark my status in Slack as lunch and return within the hour. I really appreciate that because just like I said before, like, oh, meeting friends for dinner. I've had incidents where, like, oh, my friends will want to meet me for lunch. And it's like, oh, we're meeting at this time. And I can just do that. Like, I can just go real quick for like 40-ish minutes, come back. Perfect. I like the flexibility there. Like, it's not super micromanagey. And I appreciate that. But I guess to end off, I have some recognitions of a bunch of names of people that have helped me a lot over the course of my internship. Of course, you're going to recognize my main manager, Ryan McCall, at the beginning. And I'm not going to go through each one because that would take forever, but these are just people that I've interviewed, people that have given me specific projects and helped a lot and been patient with me asking a lot of questions, like how I said I kind of had to learn not to do. And overall, I've just had a really positive experience at this company. It was a little bit bumpy for a little bit, but once the expectations were clear, I got off my feet, and I feel like I've learned a lot over the course of this summer. And hopefully I learned a little bit more over the course of these last 2 weeks.